Good morning, everyone. This is a special committee of the whole meeting of the municipality of the County of Annapolis. We're going to deal with a special presentation with respect to the Basinview Center today. I'll start with a roll call. District 1.
Bruce Prout.
District 2.
Brian McDonald.
District 3 is myself. District 4.
Clyde Barta.
District 5.
Lynn Longmire.
District 6.
Alec Morrison.
District 7.
Dave Hudson.
District 8.
Michael Gunn.
District 9.
Wendy Sheridan.
District 10.
Brad Reddy.
And District 11.
Diane LeBlanc.
Thank you very much. Steve McGinnis is the Director of Municipal Operations for the county, and he is going to lead the report with respect to the situation at the Basinview Center, and so I'll turn things over to Mr. McGinnis.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just a couple of preamble notes here. Well, I had sent out a plethora of information to council, and it's contained in this binder here. It mostly contained the technical reports that we've completed over the last year and a half on the facility. And what I've attempted to do on the slide presentation is kind of bring a summary to that and some technical information for council to consider. So with that, I'll get started. So David's going to advance the slides, and I'll be reading from my paper document here. So David, if you would proceed. So just as a matter of review for council and the people watching, the street side building was part of the original D&D facilities. It was built in 1977. The county took over that operation in 1996. The pool facilities were completed construction in 2005 by the Lifeplex Society located in Cornwallis Park, and the Lifeplex Society turned that over to the county in the mid-2000s for the county to operate. In and around 2012, or slightly before, the county entered into an agreement with the YMCA to take over the running of the athletic facility. Prior to that, it was purely a seasonal operation. It only ran in the summertime when the cadet camp was there in terms of the pool facility. The commercial facility ran year-round. Jumping ahead to our current situation, in 2018, the pool started experiencing significant leaks, and repairs are undertaken to fix those leaks in 2018, and they worked for a time. David, are you with me on that one?
I am now.
Okay, so it's the background, starting with the bullet, the county entered into an agreement with the YMCA. Okay, thank you. So the next slide. That issue in terms of the pool leaking and the overall investment that we felt we were making on a repeated basis in dealing with ongoing maintenance issues, the county retained J.S. Held, a consulting firm, to do a complete building assessment on the Basinview facility, and the findings of that and the recommendation of that report were presented to council in the spring of 2020. And in very broad strokes, what the report found was the 1977 structure, the original structure, was in fair to poor condition, and the 2005, the new recreational facility, was in good to fair condition. Next slide, please. In and around that time, the same time, the pool began to leak again significantly in the spring and summer of 2020, and the pool facility was closed to undertake additional investigation on the foundation and coring of the pool floor to determine what the problem was. Coring and videotaping of the supply lines, the ground penetrating radar, which showed us what was happening underneath the pool floor, and the foundation investigations, some test pits that we dug around the exterior of the building, confirmed that the major leak was in one of the supply lines, and as a result of that leak, there were significant voids or undermining of the pool floor within the facility as a result of that. Next slide. So from the investigation in 2020, JSL gave us some additional recommendations, and that presentation was made to council in the fall of 2020 and provided an options to resolve the leaks, although there was concerns the leaks that we would repair, series of patching, some additional cuts, and some filling of the voids underneath the pool floor. They couldn't say for sure whether it would resolve the ongoing leaking problem, because there seemed to be a building creep issue. The building seemed to be shifting over the years. So with that recommendation, council asked us to undertake a structural integrity of the building, a review of that, and that was authorized and completed in January, of 2021. So just reviewing the summary of those findings, both from the additional engineering study that we had undertaken and the initial building assessment, the 1977 building, one of the major conclusions was the lack of the day-to-day maintenance and capital planning had a significant impact on the life of that older structure, the 1977 structure. Moisture penetration and a lack of eavesdropping accelerated the aging of the structure, again, the 1977 structure. And the mechanical and electrical systems are aged and have reached the end of their design life and require replacing or major refitting. On the 2005 building, coring and excavation of the foundation has not produced conclusive recommendations to resolve the pool leaking, but they have recommended, as I said earlier, one potential repair solution. Structural issues around the east wall, the circular window, the large window on the east wall, need to be corrected with additional destructive investigation. And what we mean by that is we'll have to take down some of the drywall, investigate how the window is mounted and secured against the columns that are there. But what the structural assessment did confirm is that the columns are true and straight. It's more about the support system for that window itself that seems to be the issue. And again, that was related to moisture getting inside of the wall and deteriorating the connection system that the window has to the main columns. Just for council's information, we've included for the next slide on your document itself. It's a little fuzzy. I've expanded a kind of a snapshot of another document. It gives us a summary of the expenditures, the revenue we received from the on-site leases, the debenture payment that we undertook when we took over the facility in 1996. And as you can see, that debenture fell off in 2018, 2019, and then the total net cost of that facility over the last 5 years, and the 6th year is year-to-date costs for that as council information. I've included some options, and you'll see in the one of the documents that JSL has provided the council in terms of the summary document after all the engineering investigation that they provided to myself in about February. These are just options to, I guess, get the conversation going. They're not exhaustive, but it's something I felt maybe could be put on the table and begin those conversations. The investment in the pool and the north wall structure to a level that reopens the facility for a limited time. And those numbers I have in one of the next slides is one of the options we could consider. Repurpose the existing large pool area. And again, what that means is that if we're not entirely sure about how to fix that leak because of the building creep within the structure itself. Essentially, the large pool, the two other pools would remain in service, could be filled in, and we could repurpose that part of the building. We could build a new facility, and we could seek out additional partners and grants to renovate, to repurpose, or to reconstruct. These are all, I guess, on the table as we move forward and looking at what the overall future is for that facility. Additional considerations in terms of community. Is the pool integral to the space itself? That's the large pool. As I said, what's termed Pool A, or the kiddie pool, would remain in service if that's the way the direction goes. Is the pool integral to the community itself in terms of Cornwallis Park or to a larger county? Is the facility, same question, integral to the community and to the county? And what funding is available? There is, as council is aware, there's fairly new programs being announced annually in terms of infrastructure support. Another program was just announced here in the last month in terms of making facilities more COVID friendly. Don't know if it would apply here, but certainly there are ongoing programs that could be used to support the structure. Community synergies to assist in the funding. We've had some interest from other either businesses that, and certainly the conference center itself, in terms of keeping the facility open to provide the services that the cadet camps have used over the years. Likely need to discuss a public engagement process as we decide what the final outcome is for the building. And I apologize, I guess I didn't shrink up the font small enough, but inside that bottom header is private sector options for investment. Again, there's been interest from some of the private sector about looking at the future for that facility, and they may be interested in helping. But that's only been at a discussion point for now. Just some numbers that we've looked at through the engineering assessments and through the overall building assessment. So the interim repair to the pool and the north wall, so that's, as you council who were present prior to the election, there was a presentation made to council, I think in the fall of 2020. We looked at about $125,000, $126,000 solution to get the pool reopened, and then the repairing of the wall itself, because that window, the support system around the window is beginning to get compromised, and it's bowed out a little bit. And during our tour, for those of you who may have noticed, there's a crack in that wall below the large window, and that needs to be resolved. So that alone is about a $315,000 expense. Commercial siding, which would go a long way, if not totally resolve the moisture penetration into the existing brick facade on the buildings. Over the years, the brick has just become saturated, and one of the options we could consider is just cladding around the entire building. There's very, let's say, attractive architectural treatments for that kind of cladding for buildings. Just the closing of the larger pool, again, for conversation and for options to consider, is about $125,000 touch. What that would do was it would pour concrete beams in place in the pool floor, and then there would be a concrete floor poured on top of that, and it would just turn into a large open space ready to be repurposed for whatever we may consider. Those reallocated pool spaces, and again, there was some discussion in the JS Held report, the last report that was submitted, that was included in your digital package. We looked at glassed-in squash courts or full-size half-court basketball facilities, but I'm not an expert. I only asked them to include those price tags to give us something to begin our conversation with. That's probably, if that direction is chosen, it's more up to the recreation specialist to advise us on what that facility or what that area can be repurposed for. The total facility replacement, and that's both the commercial side and the recreational side, is estimated about 13.5. The projected reinvestment that was presented in the JS Held building reassessment that was presented in the spring of 2020 is about 12.9 million over a 20-year period if we wanted to reinvest in the structure. But they did say within that report, especially the 1977 structure, it's getting near the end of life. The last slide is again more of a breakdown on a year-by-year sequence for that reinvestment plan that was presented in the JS Held report. So there's a very, very brief overview of kind of where we are right now. There's obviously a lot more detailed invest information in the reports themselves in terms of the condition of the building and the strategies to either bring the building up to snuff, and then beyond that, there's just the facility itself and its impact on the community and the county at large. I tried to give us a snapshot of where we are technically on this and some financial options at either looking at short-term considerations to have the facility reopen, and then presented some long-range numbers in terms of what it would cost to replace again, and I focus on the entire facility. So that's the commercial facility and the pool facility at that cost. If there's any questions through the chair, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
So we'll open the floor for comments and questions. Looking around the room, Councillor Connell.
Was there any consideration of maybe partnering with a community group to put an outdoor pool in? Was that ever thought of in one of the options?
One of the options, because I kind of focused on the level of service the facility has currently, which is both commercial and pool. But as I recall, I think JS Held in their original report presented a number between 5 and 8 million for just a pool, a standalone pool itself, and a large enough facility that it's the pool and the walking track and the exercise area. So a complete replacement of that entire facility.
That's for a closed pool.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
not what
closed pool and a replacement of the track and the workout facilities.
Councillor Connell asked about the cost of an open-air pool.
Open air pool, I can't comment on that. We didn't really look into that.
But I mean, that should be one of in one of the options. Should be is that what if we don't want to put all this money into this building, then is there an option for that community to have an outdoor pool the same as every community through our county has? When you go from one end of our county to the other, and when you look at Kings County and look at other counties in Nova Scotia, there's not many of them unless it's a university or Air Force government agency that's got indoor pools. So, I mean, I went to a competition pool thing at the Kempful pools 2 years ago, and I mean, when I went to Cornwallis, I looked at 3 lanes, not even big enough to hold an event, when I could go to an open pool in Kempful and watch several groups of kids that are involved in swimming, in competition swimming, have an all-day meet there. So I mean, I would like to see what it would cost to put in a pool, an outdoor recreational pool, and the cost of that in the options.
Okay. Councillor Longmire?
Thank you. Speaking to Councillor Connell, I know the 3-lane pools are outdated. I mean, in terms of competition, you have to have a 6-lane pool. So that changed that for the competition piece. I know with Life Saving Society and looking at an outdoor pool, I know we'd had many conversations with Digby and Annapolis outdoor pool, and we kind of come together and shared our outdoor experience, and then we, you know, on the other part of the season, help go back to the YMCA. The difference between the way they instruct changed a bit, and so they go with the Life Saving Society, and of course we do Red Cross in the outdoor pools. So it complicates it with instructors and things like that. So I'm just wondering, I know back in the beginning there had been a partnership struck up somehow with Digby. Is that even a possibility when we took over, or however this relationship started with the Y?
I'm not sure of that history, other than I think the county in 2011, 2012 had approached the Y to see if there was some sort of relationship we could put together, and obviously we have. In terms of other contributions from other municipalities, that is not in place, although I believe those discussions were had. They just couldn't come to a conclusion.
Other questions or comments? Councillor Sheridan?
So regarding the building itself, if the decision was made to replace the building, do we have a cost on the tear down part of that project?
Steve?
It would be 400,000 plus. And I think it would be quite a bit north of 400,000 to demolish that building.
So that's not included in the 13 million?
No.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Councillor Redden?
In one of the reports, it speaks about the extent of their ground penetrating radar survey.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the ground penetrating radar report, it really only addresses the pool bottom. And it doesn't talk about any of the side surveys. We've paid quite a bit of money for reports, these technical reports. And it'd be really nice to kind of at least have some comment on what the other sections of ground penetrating survey work had found. For the most part, I thought the reports were quite comprehensive, but that was something I'd like to see in the recommendation.
They did, we kind of did 2 phases of ground penetrating radar earlier on, and with a machine that wasn't quite as sophisticated as the one that actually gave us a snapshot. They did do the sidewalls, and they didn't find any appreciable voids. But I will look and confirm that, though.
Councillor Prout?
Thank you. 2 points. One, I sort of skipped over the roof safety harness. 75, that's my understanding that was done.
That is being done. We've
Being done.
Those things are being manufactured off-site and will be installed. Yeah. And if I may, it's kind of a 2-phase approach, so we could keep within the budget of this year in terms of the approved funds. So we're doing the immediate need around the rooftop units that are close to the edge, and then we'll present another project to council for the coming year to completely harness off the rest of the roof.
Thank you. I guess my other comment would be, having read through a couple of times the report that we received in SharePoint. I was pleased to see it. Parts of it say they felt there was no structural problem with the walls themselves. I mean, yes, it's spurting out. We have problems under the window, and the east side is problematic. But am I correct in understanding from what I read that overall, the building appears to be structurally sound? I mean, there's still these issues.
Yeah, I think I'll kind of paraphrase the report from CBCL, who did the structural review. There's no imminent danger of a risk of any kind, but one of the options that was considered before we authorized the structural review was additional geotechnical investigation, some boring around, I think actually on the pool deck, and then around the building itself to really give us a better picture of what's going on with the foundation itself. If I may, I'll just comment on that a little bit more. It appears there wasn't a whole lot of over-excavation before the foundations were poured, and they were just poured basically almost on the native soil. And I think that's may have caused us some issues, although, I mean, it's an alluvial fan, essentially a hard gravel base down there, but it's that they think that might be contributing to the issues.
Thank you.
Councillor Hudson.
Yes, I was just wondering if there's any trends developing in Nova Scotia regarding indoor pools. I asked that question simply that I know in Antigonish, my son-in-law happens to work at the university there. They have closed their pool, and they have quite a population within the county, as well as the university population, and they have found that they can't afford to operate the pool in their environment. So I was just wondering if there were any trends in the province.
I really can't comment on that. I know that over my experience, pools are a service, and we pay for that service.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. First, let me thank everyone who has been involved in this file since the beginning. The project, as was indicated, was in existence for a number of years, and then the county assumed ownership. And as we know, ownership comes with expectations. It comes with performance. And really, this is a seminal moment in the history of our county community. How we approach this will define us and our population and our economic development and our mental and physical well-being for decades to come. And we will be known by what we do. Most of the discussion of my colleagues this morning has been with regard to pools. And I know throughout the province that there are large indoor pools in Sydney, Glasgow, Truro, Halifax, and in a number of universities. I've yet to find one that is completely self-sustaining. However, the pool is one part of the whole structure. And over the past few days, I made a list of businesses, governments, community groups, and citizens that I think need to be directly involved in the consultation and decision process And I have over 24 categories or folks or businesses within those categories. And I'm glad to see that Steve said that, the last slide there had public consultation on it, because I think that's very important. Obviously, as the counselor for the district in which this building is located, I've received a lot of correspondence. I know my colleagues have received a certain amount of correspondence, some of which has been forwarded to me, and all of which I think will be of value in a public participation process. The options presented, I think, are comprehensive and cover a number of possibilities. My suggestion is that, I was going to say we, but I'm not sure who we is, whether this is council or this is the chief administrative officer, or if it is a combined effort. Look further at the options within the context of the comments made here today to see if the options presented need to be further defined, or if there are other further options that we need to consider. In addition, I would like to see, and I'll use the term P3, I would like to see efforts made in refining a list of possible cooperators and donors which we ought to approach and determine whether there is interest and potential for cooperation and exactly what that means. I've been involved in a number of initiatives on the international, federal, and provincial level enough to make this statement. There is never any money, but there is always money. If we investigate, if we contact, if we communicate, if we cooperate with funders, both governmental and private. As a county, we have recently celebrated, I think, the almost $500,000 granted to King's Theatre for a top, what I take from media reports, a top-to-bottom renovation and preparation for years to come. And Janet Larkman and her board deserve congratulations for their tenacity and for their patience and for their willingness to participate in what sometimes are the long roads to grants. But they did, and they did it. And I use that as an illustration of what's out there. So, take a look at the options. Do they need to be further refined? Are there other options? And explore to some substantive measure the possibilities of wider community and provincial and federal funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bartel?
It's not an easy situation that we've been migrated into. We have a lot to digest. We've seen the reports. There's a lot of information there. How we analyze that and digest it, it's not going to happen at this meeting. We need some time to contemplate, to go forward. if we found that even though the facility is dated and there's issues of history and timelines when, replacement or whatever, I guess if we look at it from different perspectives, the facility might be old, but if it's structurally sound and we can cost effectively repurpose or renovate, that's one option. I guess we've talked about the other ones. I don't have to go over that any further, but if it's structurally sound, as far as the support structure, holding up the roof, the floors, everything else, if it's just an exterior envelope, the exterior walls that has to be stabilized, that's probably the smaller issue. If we contemplated replacing an outdoor facility, I don't think that's going to work for the feedback that we're going to get from our constituents. It's a outdoor pool is seasonal at best. Planning events around it is problematic. An indoor facility where we already have the structure, if the 3-lane for therapeutic and other uses works for our current needs, and we have to also look at the fact that it is part of the overall picture that brings in the cadet programs and other uses for the facility, that we got to look outside of a little bit outside of the facility itself and how it affects the surrounding programs and people, residents, permanent residents and transient users of the pool. There's a lot to consider before we would decide to decommission or anything else. I think we would have some issues changing it over to an open space to repurpose for something else. I guess I have some problems with that personally. I'm not a user of the pool, but there's a lot of people, there's a lot of constituents it's called, and they're really concerned, and they really take advantage of it as a health thing for the well-being of those who are using it. It's not only just the YMCA for the gym, but if we lose the pool, is YMCA going to be gone too, and we lose the whole wellness, it's not wellness center, but the YMCA now. If there's more ifs, ands, or buts than there is answers at this point. Our current financial situation puts us into another train of thought as to how we budget anything if we are to go forward with this. I don't think we need to have an albatross sitting there that's not being used. If it can be repaired and back in operation for an acceptable cost, maybe we need to explore that a little further. The possibility of grants and other revenue sources, and those things take time to explore and develop. I'm not sure on the interim measure. The pool's already been down for a period of time. I'm not necessarily a fan of patchwork and Band-Aid measures. If the pool itself has some undermining, if it's only under the pool floor and the source problem is rectified, we should be able to stabilize that and bring it back to life without building a new facility at this point. I think that there's a lot of considerations from a lot of different angles, and this is the first round of discussions, and I can see that there's going to be a lot more to come. The resolution to this matter is, I think every person in this room, every councillor is probably going to have their own different varying thoughts on it. And I think once we hear everything, it might affect everybody, other individuals' way of thinking to resolve this problem. how is this going to go forward as far as maintaining the use of the cadet camp who comes and they expect the use of that facility. Are we going to lose that? I guess it's the only one in Maritimes, the only one of 3 in Canada that has those camps now, or that will for this year. Do we have anything that would push us towards getting it running so that we don't lose the season and then don't lose them for perpetuity? Like I said, there's a lot of questions. I have more questions than answers, and I'm looking for feedback. I don't make a decision without all the information, and I can see there's a lot more information that's required before I do so. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to butt in here because I just want to ask a few questions, and I'll come back to the councillors. I see their hands up. Just for my edification, can you tell me let's talk about pools, swimming pools. Can you start at Greenwood and go all the way to Digby and tell me what pools there are?
To my knowledge, indoor pool in Greenwood.
And can the public use that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I'm actually not sure of any kind of pool facility in Milton. Perhaps somebody can help me out.
Yes.
The pool can be used in Greenwood at a price.
Yeah.
Same as YMCA.
Yeah.
It's very.
So there's an indoor pool in Greenwood that you pay to use. Is that what we're?
Pay.
Yeah. Yep. Middleton, but does anybody know
Yes.
Middleton?
Yes.
Middleton,
Yeah.
Lawrencetown.
Outdoor.
There's a pool in Lawrencetown?
Yeah.
Outdoor.
Sorry?
Outdoor pools.
Outdoor, yeah, outdoor.
Bridgetown.
Bridgetown.
Outdoor.
Annapolis.
Annapolis is outdoors.
Yes.
They're all
They're all outdoors.
And then Digby?
Yes, at the rink.
outdoor.
What,
Outdoor.
sorry?
Outdoor.
An outdoor pool in Digby.
There's an outdoor in Greenwood.
And an outdoor in Greenwood as well as the indoor one?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think that's, if I may, I used to be, I have been a member in the past of that. It's the outdoor pool in Greenwood is, I believe, helps to accommodate the overflow when cadets are there.
Uh-huh.
The indoor one, generally speaking, runs year-round. And although COVID has, at one point, had made some
Okay.
changes in how it operated, both civilians, it's my understanding at the present time, both civilians and service members are using the indoor pool. It's just my own thing. I'm not a fan of chlorine, so when I was a member, I used to use the outdoor pool, but it closes, I think, generally speaking, around shortly after Labor Day, somewhere between Labor Day and the end of September, if my recollection is correct. It didn't open up until, I'm going to say June. I stand to be corrected on that. The rest of the time, the outdoor pool was closed, but the indoor ran year-round.
Okay, so that's the pool. We've gone through the pool. Now, I was there on the run-through of the building, and it's a wonderful facility. There's no question about that. And I was quite taken with the exercise facility, if you call that. What do you call that?
Gym.
A gym? Whatever. I thought it was very well appointed, but can we do the same thing for me? Start at Greenwood and go to Digby about exercise facilities, that you pay for and you join as a gym.
Yeah.
Can
So Greenwood.
somebody help me out on that?
So Greenwood has the indoor.
Well, let's just hold on a sec. I'm going to ask you first.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not that athletic.
Okay. So Greenwood.
Okay, hold it.
Middle.
I'll ask Councillor LeBlanc. Can you take it from the top?
We started Greenwood
There's an exercise place in Greenwood, yeah.
on the base, Middleton.
There's one in Middleton.
Two.
Yes.
There's actually
Two.
Two.
Yeah, and then we go to
Bridgetown.
Bridgetown, they have one, the Trojan.
There's one in Bridgetown. Is that in the old distillery building?
No, it's now at
Well, it was.
Rice's. Rice's, where the car wash is.
Oh, yes.
It's there now.
Okay, in behind there, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And then, what's in Annapolis?
Nothing.
Annapolis?
Nothing. And then going
No.
down further, it goes to Digby.
And
Well,
Digby.
ours, Cornwallis.
Yeah, and then there'd be something in Digby, I assume.
But they're all privately owned,
That's
Yeah.
right.
other than the base, and they're not eligible for any grants from the county.
Okay. I'm trying to just get the facts here, I'm just trying to figure this out.
As far as
Okay.
recreation,
And
there's,
just hold on, just a sec, please. So I've done the pool,
Fitness.
and I've done the exercise facility. As far as, we've got a grocery store in that facility, and I know there's a superstore in Digby, which would be, I think I looked it up, it's about 13 kilometers to that intersection. And it's about 13 kilometers from Cornwallis to Annapolis, right? Okay, I just wanted to go through that for my own edification. I think I saw Councillor Sheridan with her hand up next.
Yes, in the replacement cost, to say if we were to build a new facility, they're replacing the same size building in the replacement cost. So we don't really need a building of that size, because inside that building houses a large room that's the size of a small bungalow that's just used for storage. It's just wasted space, basically. If we're to replace that, we need an actual cost or a blueprint of something that we want to build to house what we want to house, but not necessarily the same size building.
Fair comment, yeah. And Councillor Hudson, you had your hand up?
Yes, I was just wondering, talking about partnerships, I was just curious as to whether or not any discussions have occurred or taken place with the conference center, because I know the pool is very important to them in terms of the cadet program. Have they been provided with this information?
Nope.
Okay. I guess I just wonder, that perhaps we should provide that information to them, because that pool is very important to their cadet program.
Yeah, the funding clearly the big issue, whatever scenario we take. Councillor Connell.
I just have a comment and then I got a question.
Okay.
The YMCA in Yarmouth closed over a year ago. So there must have been reasons why an area the size of Yarmouth couldn't afford the YMCA and the facility.
Was there a pool there?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's one comment. Under the operating history, it's got, for 2021, it was actually $767,919. The revenue was only $166,000. So out of that revenue, I saw a hair salon, physio place, and a store. So there would be three contributors to that 166, I'm assuming, for revenue.
Is that a question?
I would like to know what each one is paying for rent, because, and I'd like to know what the rent is for the YMCA for, when I went through the walk around, I was amazed, upstairs and downstairs, the amount of room each renter had beyond what they needed. I mean, the YMCA had multiple rooms. They had the whole downstairs. Every bit of downstairs was included in the Y. Then the walking track and the facility where the pool is. In the old building, the store owner had 90% of the floor space in the upstairs. There was a little hair salon, which didn't take up much footage. And there was a little physio shop in the corner that wasn't open the day we were there, that didn't look very big. So I'm with Wendy. If a consideration is made to reconstruct or even think about redoing what we have there, there has to be some major changes. If those renters aren't paying enough to pay for the building, then there's something wrong with the system.
Yeah, I see that the operating costs are around 600,000 a year that we're covering. The
Yes.
net operating cost.
601.
Well, I'm just roughing,
Yeah,
average about 600,000 a year the county's paying to keep that place going.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you look at all the facilities across the county, I think we give a small grant to each town toward the recreation facilities. I think we give 5,000, or back when I was on, I think we gave 5,000 a year to the rinks. We used to give grants to the pools, a little small grant. But other than that, the county didn't pay for them. And they were ran by a society that was usually a not-for-profit. So when I see $600,000 a year for cost to run a building in Cornwallis Park, when 75% of our county going eastward gets nothing of that. I mean, Bridgetown has an area rate to cover the things that, or the community of Bridgetown's got an area rate to cover the things that they wanted to keep in their community. So if we go forward with whatever we do in Cornwallis Park, is it time to area rate that if they want that facility in that area? I mean, there's got to be some reason here that my taxpayers get essential services paid for. That comes out of their tax rate. They get fire, police, and
Garbage.
and police. But other than that, other than getting a few grants for $1,000, $2,000 here or there, taxpayers across our whole county is paying that $600,000 a year. And the citizens, I understand the citizens down that end don't want to lose something they got. But they didn't have it a few years ago, and the Sea Cadet camps were still in Cornwallis. They went to Ravenhaven, they busted into Ravenhaven, and probably if we look back, that's probably what happened last summer when the pool was closed. They probably took the Sea Cadets to Ravenhaven.
No.
No? Okay. So, I mean, there's other avenues of dealing with this other than just having a thought about dumping all this money back into a building that's not even paying for itself now. That's the problem I'm having is that if the county wasn't paying $600,000 a year to maintain what's there, we still got to pay that $600,000 to maintain something that's going to be there in the future. Cost of running it, we approached the YMCA many times over the years I was on council and tried to get them to pay attention to their budgets. But when you've got a contract that the county's liable for their overrun, sometimes that's a deterrent on their part that they don't care about the overrun because county taxpayers are picking it up. That's the agreement. So, and that's why I would like to see an option of an outdoor pool come into the options. When you just went across our whole county, and when you go into Kings County, the only indoor pools in all of Kings County is CFB Greenwood and Acadia. Everyone else is outdoor pools. Is there an indoor pool in Windsor? Hands. No.
Outdoor.
It's all outdoors.
Outdoor pool, and there's a private school that has an indoor pool.
But we have to realize is what can the taxpayers of Annapolis County keep staying? That's the issue I'm having.
Okay, thank you for that. Other comments? Deputy Warden Gunn?
Thank you. A couple of questions, and then if I might make a comment, I'd like that. You know, as a contractor, when I used to build houses or do projects or whatever I did, I always carried a $2 million liability policy. And so the houses that I built or the projects that I did were covered by my liability policy for 5 years, right? So if there was a problem gone with the house, the roof blew off, it fell down, my insurance would cover it. So this has only been 16 years since that pool was built, and I'm just wondering, is there a longer term for these contractors, and if not, why? Why aren't contractors providing a lifetime, which nowadays is 25 years considered, a 25-year guarantee with the building that they're doing? I mean, aren't those contractors, somewhere along the line, something didn't go together right that caused the leak? Because otherwise than that, it's just sitting there inert, the building, right? Other than, water, if it takes leaking. Anyway, to get to the point, the question, is there liability? Do those contractors have liability insurance, and how far does it go? How long does it carry on?
I don't think Mr. McGinnis is a lawyer.
Thank you.
I am, and even I will not answer that question.
Well, when we said I asked that hard question.
I've had some cases similar to that, but 16 years to me seems like a fairly long time for any contractor to say it's a normal wear and tear.
Okay. Thank you. And so now I want to go to my next question, please. And when the pools burnt down years ago in Cornwallis, they used rubber chips to fill the old pool in. And then they put, I don't know, probably some pavement or some dirt over top of it. And those holes are filled in. So my question is, with the engineers here, he's saying we have to have beams to go across that pool. Can't we just fill that pool in and put a cement floor? Why do we have to suspend a cement floor on top of that void?
That's something we can run by the engineers, and I think it would depend on what your intended use is after you fill the pool in.
Well, if we filled the pool in and made, I don't know, I'm just throwing stuff out there, an indoor pickleball court, a squash court, a tennis court in there where the pool was, divided it where the new pool, or the, I don't know if I'll call it the small pool is, divided there. And couldn't that whole building be kind of repurposed that way? It's certainly a lot cheaper and still be functional as a YMCA.
That's one of the options that's presented, and again, this is a very high level kind of estimates that were given. Are there other construction options? Likely, but that's the one they've presented.
That's the ones they've presented, okay. And so it does it for my questions, thank you. But I do have a comment. I believe myself, my own, that if Annapolis County is going to invest in a facility like this, and I've said this for years, it should be central at the county, this kind of facility. If we're going down that road to talk about building new pools or whatever, I think it should be central to the county for, that way it's fair. And the other thing is, I got these old buildings. Annapolis County a year ago in 2019 declared a climate emergency. And my question to this is keeping a bunch of obsolete fuel-sucking buildings going the way to follow up on the climate emergency that we declared?
I don't think that's a question for Mr. McGinnis to respond to, but it's an interesting comment.
Yeah, thank you. And to answer somebody else's, we actually pay the YMC. Councillor Connell brought up, we pay them $50,000 a year to operate the YMCA, and then we pick up the bills as well.
I'd like to pick up on that if I could, and I wanted to ask some staff, I don't know which one it is, to tell us what the financial relationship is with the Y, just to put it on the record. Anyone here who are you pointing to, Holly? Would you speak up, because we're going to have a hard time catching you on the microphone.
A management fee of $50,000. We pay them a management fee of $50,000 per year to operate that facility for us. So they didn't approach us, we approached them.
So we pay them $50,000 to operate.
Yes.
In other words, to do the security and the cleaning. Is that what you're talking about?
I think Steve can probably talk about the cleaning.
Well, cleaning's extra. We've used a private contractor with varying degrees of success for the common area upstairs We now have a cleaning relationship because they have their cleaners on site all the time, so we've contracted with them to clean the upstairs area, but they're responsible for their own cleaning downstairs.
So, and what do they pay us? If we pay them $50,000 for what they do, what do they pay us for the space?
We charge them 53% of the heat and electricity for the entire building. But then in turn, if they end up with a deficit, we cover their deficit. So it's just a minute and a half, basically. So what that 166,000 that you see there is revenue 2021, the majority of that is 53% of the heat and electricity that we're charging them. But then it ends up in our budget as a deficit.
You're losing me a bit.
Yeah,
Lost me there, too.
It's confusing.
The 116 I thought was all of the revenue from the grocery store and the
It
hair
is.
salon.
It is,
Okay, it's not just the Y.
right.
Okay.
But there's a very small portion that is actually rent income for the grocery store and those smaller businesses.
Can you tell me, I'm assuming that in the end, we are contributing money to the Y rather than the Y is paying. Do you have any idea what it's costing us in a year? I know that we're out $600,000 a year.
Yeah, and that is the true cost.
And how much of that is the Y, and is that possible to figure out?
How much of those operating costs?
Yeah.
are the what?
Okay, if you can't.
We've really never done that calculation. We use 53% of the heat and electricity costs. But is that
It's based on floor space,
yes.
It's what, sorry?
based on square footage, floor space.
So is it safe to say that 53% of those expenditures relate to WY?
I don't think that's safe to say. The challenge of that building is the older part of the building needed some significant investment in the HVAC systems on the rooftop. And I think we've kind of caught up because we've replaced so much, because we didn't have too bad of a year in terms of contracted repairs for those facilities, in terms of the rooftop units. In terms of the 53%, I think it's, between the county and the Y, they just came up with a formula based on square footage, because the building, the way it was added onto, the metering is spotty in terms of power charges, in terms of what meters track what energy consumption in what area of the building. So they just landed on a square footage and take it as that, just to simplify the calculation.
Councillor Morrison, you had your hand up.
Thank you. I was going to discuss, or just mention two things, one of which we've just heard about, is that the calculation for utilities is based on square footage, not based on actual use, because the number of meters in that METERS that run around in that building is either exact or incalculable, depending on the person to whom you speak. And we've been talking about this for at least 8 years and 3 months. The other thing is the contract with the YMCA, it's not called a contract, it's called by a different name, that's what it is. And I think it might be useful for members of council to be able to read that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sheridan?
So I just wanted to point out that the cost to run the Y, it is around $600,000. However, we've been putting a lot more money into that each year because of capital projects. So I don't have the actual figure in front of me, but I think you're looking more of $900,000 up to $1 million per year, because we've had a lot of high capital costs in that building. And it brings me back to the space again. We're not utilizing the whole building. We're just, the heat and lights are included in the rent for those grocery store operators and the pizza place, the heat and lights are all included in the rent. This place is so huge to heat and keep care of. Like, to look at it the way the consultant put it, it's much cheaper to build a new one than to fix this building up. And to sustain it in the long term, it'll cost a lot less each year to operate. That's just my opinion.
Mr. McGinnis, could I pick up on that?
Yep.
In the report that you gave, there was an amount of around $13 million to build a new building. That was for a building the same size as the current building?
Correct. Yeah.
And if there was, for example, a decision to go just with let's call it a pool, an indoor pool, I think you gave us a number of $5 million?
Yeah, 5 to 8 for a fitness. Sorry? And 5 to 8 million for a fitness and pool.
Fitness and pool?
Yeah.
Facility? Okay. All right. Councilor Morrison?
Thank you. There is a lot of unused space in that building, as we all know. A number of years ago, when whatever was there before was replaced by the regional economic networks, council made a conscious decision based on cost and interest not to belong to a rent. And we've seen, in a way, some adverse effects of that. A number of councillors have made, over the years, very good suggestions as to what might fill the unused space, but nothing, or absolutely close to nothing, was ever done to market that space. As far as I know, the only marketing instrument the county has used is the sign that's on the big sign outside the building, and which is about 2 feet wide and 6 inches deep. I think that has been the extent of our marketing. I don't think we have ever really tried to market it. And councillors have come up with suggestions from pharmacies and part-time doctors, et cetera, that we have not done a good job to market that space. Thank you.
Mr. McGinnis, if I could ask you another question. When I look at the capital cost that you've got on one of the slides over the next 20 years, if I look at the next 5 years, I came up with something like, it was a little over $1 million a year. It was more like $6 million over the next 5 years. The big number being the 5th year, I think. Right?
Yep.
So is it fair to say that if we didn't do anything, if we just kind of kept repairing that building and kept the status quo, we'd be paying about $600,000 a year in operating costs and $1 million a year for capital costs, $1.6 million a year for the next 5 years?
I think that number needs to be refined, because I think one of the strategies council could consider is the immediate needs, and my recommendation would be the northeast wall, and to get that repaired, or at least investigated to find out what's going on, find out what the additional cost would be, and operate as is right now. But I think there's a time phase that needs to be undertaken in terms of, is council going to consider a public process, additional investigation? The numbers that are presented in the costs are in terms of the 20-year renovation or recapitalization of the building, because some of the structures are so aged. That's the hypothetical one. Those numbers can slide, I think, depending on what we see the vision for the building in 5 or 10 years. We may not need to make those additional investments if we have a different vision for that building over the next 5 or 10 years.
A different vision, like filling in the pool kind of thing?
Filling in the pool, replacing the pool. We would make a significant investment, for instance, in HVAC units if we saw we were going to, decommission that building. We just wouldn't be worthwhile to invest the 1.5 million. We would invest maybe 50 to 100 to undertake emergency repairs. But I think we have to kind of see where we're going before we set that recapitalization plan, if at all, depending on what our vision is.
Well, I'm just looking at the investment plan here, and I see 2026, there's a big number, $3 million.
2026.
Do you know what that's for?
Not off the top, but if you give me a minute, I can tell you.
I'm sure we'll have lots more discussions,
Yeah.
but that's a big number, whatever
Yeah.
it's for there, in 5 years' time. Other questions or comments? Councillor Sheridan?
So regarding, and I know I'm sticking on a new building here, but regarding a new building, wouldn't there be some kind of funds out there from the province or the feds on making it energy efficient? Like, wouldn't we be able to access grants to build a new facility more so than to repair one? It's just...
I don't think there's a definite answer to that, but there's probably a likely answer to that. Mr. McGuinness, can you respond
Yeah,
to the
there's-
qualifications?
Yeah, there's grant funding available. Some of them are competitive, so it's not you ask for it and you're going to get it. They have a set budget. Some of it's time-based in terms of who gets their application in first, and some of them are merit-based. So, but there are applications, there are programs out there, both federally and provincially. There's also programs that are available to societies only, where they get access to to certain purses that we don't have access to, and that's where I think Councillor Connell was referring to. The societies can get at that money, and it's strictly for them. So it depends our relationship of whatever facility, wherever it is that we have going forward. But certainly there are programs there. But and the synergies that we can build with other users within the area, such as the cadet camp, what, I'll use the word leverage, can they bring to any kind of future facility, because apparently the feds have made this decision. There's 3 main camps, and one of them is there. So what's their interest? And those have to be determined in terms of those conversations with the conference center. What are their expectations? What can they bring to the table?
So, second part, regarding gas tax, I realize that you can only use it on certain things. Is gas tax allowable on a new facility in any way?
Yep.
Okay. And how much?
Unlimited.
You can use all the gas tax
You can use all of it you want. I will say, with my other hat on, the county has a lot of infrastructure.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Redden?
I want to start by saying I really understand Councillor Connell's perspective about the potential of subsidizing businesses, and that it's not necessarily where we want to be putting our dollars. And I also understand, I really appreciate Mr. McGuinness's comment about this is the Y in particular is a service. It's not really meant to make money. A lot of our letters have been about a lot of the letters people have sent us in the last week or so have been about how the Y is good for their health and helps them maintain quality of life and various rehabilitation. I've also heard this from my partner before. She's an occupational therapist, and she talks at length about how these facilities are useful for maintaining people's health and quality of life. And when I was campaigning, one of my residents brought up, in Lawrencetown in particular, how we have a pool and a library and a couple other facilities she mentioned, and how they were going to be instrumental in bringing new people to our county. This is something that's come up in other places as well, that it's often these little things that are in your county, your area, your community, that are going to be what tips the balance for people moving to places, or setting up shops in places, or businesses in places. So I think these facilities, speaking of the Y in particular, is that they're important services to our town, to our community. Now to tie back into one of the warden's comments earlier about which pools are around, I noticed that this pool has a wheelchair ramp. Those are things that are not very common on pools, but immensely important for anybody with a disability to help them get into that facility. And I'm curious, do any of the other pools around have ramps
No,
at all?
no.
Councillor Proud, can you answer that?
Only in reference to one, it's my understanding. There are stairs and I almost think a lift that is at base in Greenwood. Am I correct, Councillor LeBlanc?
I think a lift.
A lift that can be brought out.
I've never seen a lift there.
No, I've
Yeah,
not seen
no,
it.
I have. Sometimes you have to ask to have it brought out to the outside pool, because I know of a couple of individuals.
Oh, the outside.
It's portable. It moves from, it's usually inside or stored inside. That's my recollection. I stand to be corrected. But it has been brought out. It's available, I'm sure.
Okay, Councillor Redden, we're back to you. I think the answer is that there might be a lift in Greenwood, but that's the only other pool that might have
So
an access.
from the conversation I've heard from my better half, lifts are great, they're functional, but they're definitely not ramps.
Yeah.
No.
No, but
Anyway, and just that ramps are so much more convenient because you take the wheelchair right down into the pool and it goes very nicely. So that was kind of that comment in question. And then just a very quick question for you, Warden, would be, have we already committed to the contract for boreholes and doing geotechnical work around the facility?
No.
Deputy Warden Gunn?
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment. You know, at Raven Haven, we have a ramp. And not only do we have a ramp for those disabled, but we have the chair there that we can take them right down in the water and let them float around. It's really a good thing. Thank you, Albert.
Other questions or comments? Oh, Councillor LeBlanc.
I've been sitting here listening to all the comments, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everywhere in between. And the thing about it is, I go back to, if I choose to come to a community, I look to see what's there. I move in the proximity of where I'd like to be, at least. And exactly what Councillor Redden has described. The facility is there, it's used by many, young and old, and in between. Because if they have an injury, they could use it. We also have the cadets coming in, which has been there for, I don't know how many years, maybe Steve McGinnis can tell me, no? Well, it's been more than 8, anyway. And I think it maybe even from 2005 when it was transferred to the county. Is that correct?
I don't know, Councillor.
Okay. So, looking at the fact that we have a facility, one of only 3 that they send the cadets, there's like something we should be able to have conversations with the government. And I looked at the structure of the building and read all the documents, and from what I see, everything is plumbing level, but something's moving. And then I look at the bottom of all these boreholes and everything that's there, and the amount of money that we spent, and the amount of money that we are about to spend, and could spend, depending on new or repairs or whatever. But I tend to think that we should do the other boreholes before we commit to something, whatever it is. And I'm thinking, well, all the other options of using what the pool was for was great, but it does not help in other ways. Maybe we can do a pool over that pool and put the piping where we can reach it instead of everything, so if there is a leak that you can actually reach these pipes. And then I look at the fact that, okay, what is it going to cost us? Seems to me that was about 150,000 more or less to get it started and might last for a couple years kind of thing.
What the engineers qualified is that there's no guarantee the repair would hold.
No, but it's about,
There's also no guarantee it wouldn't.
that's right, but it's about 100.
But that's correct. I think the number they presented last fall was 126,000. But they are also recommending to do that additional boring and test pitting around the site, just to get a better picture of what geotechnically is going on.
So that would give us maybe a 2-year limit on what we could come up with, go for grants for, apply to different levels of government and see, and inspect or ask other industries around in the area to see if they could contribute and do something with that. The one question I don't know if I've asked or I hear, our insurance. Does our insurance cover any of this?
No,
Not whatsoever.
this is wear and tear.
So there is money available. Steve wears 2 hats, so the gas tax is just part of it, but we have to do a lot more work in going out into governments, public, and see what they say. Maybe we can use the time to think of also giving us a 2-year buffer, but have a plan at the end. We need to have a direct plan, whichever way it is. My concern is the fact that, yes, it's not it's in one area, but it doesn't mean that that's where the area was. That's where the pool is. That's where it has been. We can't say, oh, we should have it in the middle of the county. It doesn't work that way. It is where it is. So why should we not look at the possibilities of keeping the infrastructure that the people have already? We all know why. We've seen the benefits. We see the negativity because of the cost and the money. However, this has not come up in the last couple of years. It's been working its way to being repaired for the last X amount of years. So being it's our structure, like anybody else, we have to repair our structures. Do we like the number and the cost? Well, nobody does that, even your own home. You don't like the number, but end result is it's your property. What are you going to do? If you don't keep the repairs up, it just gets worse. So I guess my point at the end of all this is that if there are any safety issues, but I believe that Mr. McGill has been on that, there's no safety issue at this point, but the safety issues, if there are any, has to be looked at no matter what the cost. That's where I'm at with, and those are just thoughts.
Thank you for that. Mr. Coutinho, you wanted to say something?
Warden, through you to members of council, there's been a lot of discussion here on a number of things. There's, I guess part of your consideration here is we can make temporary repairs to the pool and we can get the pool running. But one of the things we don't do well as organizations, and this is all municipal governments in general, you've got a facility, you're looking at a reinvestment plan. That facility is still going to be there, and that we're going to be spending $12 million regardless, because if you can deal with fixing the pool now, you still have that building to to contend with. So it's, and I think we've heard, there's the idea of building a new pool for $5 to $8 million. If that's where you land, that's fine. But I think there's a lot more consideration that has to be given to exactly what it is we're doing. If we're talking about fixing the pool, we still have to address this aging infrastructure that we own. And so there were some options that were presented in this report, whether we should be selling the building, going to the private sector way. If there is a need to have a pool in the community, should it be just a small pool? Should it be outdoors? Should it be indoors? Those conversations still have to take place. But I think, staff are trying to absorb all of this. We do have to come back. But at the end of the day, we still have an aging building, and we're only dealing with one part of it. It's the pool end. And the question is that going to be good use of our money? But Warden, I thought I should just express where this conversation is going and where we should probably be thinking on what other solutions are out there. I know there was a representation said, let's talk to other levels of government, and so maybe that's an avenue that staff can explore as well. But I thought I should mention those couple of points. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Councillor Connell.
And I'm going back to the point of the size of the building and the rent that we receive. We already have a lawsuit because the county claimed they didn't pay what the square footage was valued at. And we go down there and we look and see that the store owner has got 80% of the upstairs, and his rent is hardly paying his power bill. So again, we're renting below the square footage value again. And I know the problem, and we have marketed that building. We did an extensive research on what the square footage was worth in that area. We've gone through studies and we've gone through trying to get people interested in going there. I don't think putting money in, if we put $150,000 in to repair the pool, that doesn't stop the repairs, like our acting or our CAO is saying. We still got building repairs that are crumbling. The capital money we keep investing in that building, you might as well take a hole and bury it, because that's what you're doing. You're investing in a building that has lived its time. The engineers have told us that. We've been told that for 15 years. The electrical system in that building is so outrageous because we couldn't charge the store for his electrical because electrical is hooked to everything. It was going to cost us more to separate individual electrical circuits to try to get each facility that's rented in that facility to have their own power source and power bill than it was going to be worth. So, I mean, there's major deficiencies in that building. We would be better off to be looking for funding to build a standalone gym and pools. Because the maintenance and the heating and all that stuff in that new facility would be a tangent to what we're paying now. And it's no good to pick how they managed that building to death. Because when we did the walkthrough, you could go into CFP Greenwood's pool. The water's warmer than the air. We walked around there and it was so hot in that pool area that it suffocated us pretty near to death. Who's paying for the heat? Taxpayers. 600 and some thousand. So it's management problems too. We've had intensive talks to the YMCA to cut back their overrun. But there's no incentive for them to have to, because the county's on the hook for anything that's over. We've had those discussions. They did cut back a little bit for a few years. But now they're right back up. There were so many staff down there that day, it just blew me away. Again, you go to Greenwood Pool, which was, the pool's twice as big, the gym is twice as big, and there's probably not even a third of staff standing around Greenwood. I mean, there's more issues than the county just having that building there. They have management problems too. And we're paying for that management problem. So, I have a problem putting money into a car that's lived its life and no good. There's a time that it comes when it's got to go to the junkyard. And that building's getting to that point.
Thank you. Councillor Prout?
Thank you. I'm going to do something that I try not to do, and far be it, I'm at the opposite end of the county from Cornwallis. I don't like to give a lot of advice to other districts unless I'm asked. But I'm wondering if maybe, as we've talked this morning, we have a wide variance of ideas and comments. I was struck by what Councillor Redden said and others. Maybe, and one of the options was listed there was sort of a hybrid, taking part of what Councillor LeBlanc has said, that maybe we can buy a year or two with a limited investment there, and at the same time, as Councillor Morrison has said, look at our options for funding. See, other councillors have said as much as what's out there for funding from Cornwallis Park, from levels of government, from private business. And while we were continuing on, I mean, the fact that cadets are coming here brings in a huge pot of money for the county, along with the benefits that people of Cornwallis Park get from the grocery store, from the YMCA. Maybe a two-pronged approach is something we should look at, where we put a limited amount of investment there to tide us over while we're looking at exploring where we could put that complex somewhere, hopefully in the Cornwallis Park area, because it's been here. Design a more energy efficient building, conference rooms, and I tend to agree with Councillor Connell's comments that there was a lot of empty space. And if it would appear that the facts are that the wiring and the way you figure out who pays what for heat, lights, and so on, if it's that complicated, maybe, just a suggestion, maybe we should look at a two-pronged solution here. Get us through the next couple of years, if we can, with the limited expenditures, and look at what's out there for funding to build a new, more efficient complex. If we can't save the old one, there's a lot wrong. It is structurally sound, but I just put that out. Maybe we need to look at a bifurcated solution as such. Thank you.
I'll just make one more comment. One of the options that was listed, of which there really hasn't been much discussion, is trying to sell the building to the private sector. And if we did that, then we could give a substantial grant each year to the Y. Because it's the Y that we want to keep there. It's the wellness center we want to keep. If someone else would buy the building and we had a substantial grant each year to the Y, then maybe that we could control the amount of money that's going out and maintain the facility there. I just say that's one of the options that was listed. Councillor Sheridan?
I like that option, just to there's no harm in trying, right? And that would be a good way to go for now. As far as band-aiding the solution for now, we're into year 2021, and you're looking at $1.6 million just to maintain. That's not the operational cost, that's just to upgrade it. That's only another 3.5 years or so. So to keep putting millions of dollars into that building, we got to fix the problem. Rip the Band-Aid off and let's just fix the problem. Like to prolong it, we're just spending taxpayers' money, millions of taxpayers' money, millions of dollars. I like that option of seeing if there was a private sector that might be interested in purchasing. And the grant is, hey, we're still there. We're still helping as much as possible.
Councillor Longmire, did you have your hand up?
Yes. With Yarmouth and the YMCA, of course, they had struggled with the very same issues. The renos were enormous that they were facing, as well as the very large operational deficits. And they had looked at a potential of, close to 1.5 million just to do the renos, just to get them back up and running. And they are supported by 3 different municipalities. And then over the next 10 years, they had looked at potentially greater than 10 million, and that wasn't even going to include upgrades. If you look at it where we stand right now with the Y here, timing is in our favor. Right before us, we're going to be facing summer, and so a lot of those persons who will be using that pool are going to return to the outdoor settings, and they do go out to the Digby one and as well to the Annapolis site for lessons and all other types of activities. And we've talked about the mental health and the occupational therapy and all of that health and wellness. Councillor Morrison, struck a chord with that with me. I totally support that part, and certainly being appealing in the community to have an asset like this. We just have to come up with a solution. I know Deputy Warden Gunn had spoke about, potentially looking at it being central. But if you look at continuing with, like Councillor LeBlanc had said, with the cadets here, it has to be here, right? There's so many personal and much more intimate, conversations to be had, such as in a public consultation around how we would move forward. Green energy is another solution. When you look at where we're going in the future, there are so many efficiencies that we can tap into. So I suspect throughout all of this, we're going to come up with even greater ideas and hopefully find the perfect fit for us. Thanks.
Did you have your hand up? Yeah. I'll come back to you. I saw Councillor LeBlanc. Did you want to say something?
Well, on your comment, yes, on your comment of why not sell the place, I don't have a problem with that. However, we can't just put a sign up and just say for sale, and it sits there for X amount of years and nothing's being done. So again, that's one of those things that it could be in the pot of solutions, but until that particular thing happens.
It takes time. It would take time to do it. I agree with you.
You can't just stop and let it go. So.
Yeah. Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. And with regard to your idea, Warden, as you know, there is a business in the area that is interested in that building, that believes it has potential, and that business is now internally exploring what options it might have with regard to the building, and exploring, tentative, potential, nothing decided, all of those words, okay? The Yarmouth YMCA, and we've heard what led to its demise, but what interests me is what happened after it declared bankruptcy and closed. The town bought it. And the town is now exploring, and has been exploring for quite some time, according to the mayor, funding from various levels of government to allow that facility to be used for activities for which it was used before. Thank you.
Councillor Bartow, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I guess just expanding on other councillor comments that, and related to the sale of the building. It'd be good for the county to get out of business, and we won't have to have those ongoing maintenance costs. I guess we'd have to contemplate what our existence in there now is to create a recreation and exercise place for health and well-being for the residents of the county. If a developer came in and bought the building, there's no guarantee that they're not just going to kick the YMCA out and use the space for something else. So we'd have to kind of look at our go forward as if that was what we wanted to do. And if we still wanted to be in the health and wellness business or support of what that means on the go forward as far as, then it would be a requirement to replace the facility. And it wouldn't be in its current location. It's just, there's every decision we make, there's a lot of considerations that we have to look at before we go down that avenue.
Thank you. Deputy Warden.
Thank you. It would be interesting to know how many Annapolis County residents are members of the YMCA. And to measure, and so we could put those and measure how much we're actually subsidizing the health of some of the citizens. And it would also be interesting to know how much rent the guys upstairs are paying, to know how much we're subsidizing that business. I know solicitation is, I think, is illegal, but it would be interesting to go to Acadia Seed Plants, Camp Acadia, and Siri to see if they have, if they want that facility kept going, then perhaps they should be putting in some of their dollars. It's for the benefit of their employees as well. And to add one more thing there, an outdoor pool, I can't imagine would be that expensive. I think Annapolis was $200,000 a few years ago with a changing room. But for the Sea Cadets, there's all kinds of room over there where the Sea Cadets are to put, an outside pool. I can't imagine it being that much money. That if they need a pool to honor that contract, it's a big contract. We don't want to lose it. And as well, I know, I'm not going to make an announcement or anything, but I do know there are some other talks going on with some more training, possibly at Cornwallis. And that could be something else that they would be looking at as well, the availability of a pool. Thank you.
For my own edification, Councillor Morrison, I think you probably can answer this better than anybody. The cadets, I've heard talk about the cadets coming. How long are they here and what time of year do they come?
Thank you. Could I just mention something about Councillor Gunn's presentation, and then I'll go to that. About 30%, or maybe about a third of people who use the YMCA are not from Annapolis County. Therefore, about 70%. The business about soliciting business, we've said here a number of times today. I'm glad Councillor Gunn said he was not going to make any announcements about new activities at ABCC, because one of the worst things any one of us can do is make announcements about things that haven't been announced by the people who must announce the announcement. And the people who must announce the announcement won't do that until everything is locked down. So I thank him for his forbearance in saying he wouldn't make the announcement yet. The cadets are here cadets and staff are here, I think, about 9 weeks total. Staff come in early, cadets come, staff go. As people know, there are different methods this year with the training and instruction of the cadets. There will be many more Army cadets here this year than there have been before, and there will also be Air Cadets. There were a few of each and a few from other countries in previous years, but this year the Army Cadets and Air Cadets are going to be a higher percentage of the total. And I think it's somewhere around 900 at varying times. 900 people will pass through.
So the 9 weeks would be July and August?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it ends usually about the third week of August, and staff start coming in. And, when you live in the area, you look at the calendar and you say, well, you know, in about 3 months, the advance party will be coming. It's one of the, you look forward to spring and you look forward to the advance party coming. They come sometime in June. And then there are courses of varying lengths conducted at Cornwallis and also at the sailing camp in Annapolis Royal.
Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Connell.
Is the equipment in the gym section of the YMCA, is that equipment owned by the county or the YMCA?
YMCA.
What's the answer?
I think it's the YMCA.
The YMCA owns it? Is that, I see Mr. McGinnis is nodding his head. Councillor Connell, does that answer your question?
Just if I may add, I think when they initially opened it, they did fundraising to buy the equipment, and that's what that fundraising money went to, so most of them.
And if I may, when you go in there and you go downstairs, you saw that wall with the stones. They're going to replace the stones, but if you go really, really close with a magnifying glass, you'll see the names of the individuals and businesses who contributed to that capital campaign to buy the equipment.
Well, I think this has been a good discussion. Unless there are other comments. Oh, I see a hand up. Yes.
An interesting tidbit from when that.
Sorry, can you speak up a little bit?
An interesting tidbit from when that was built. Initially, a society was building it, not just as a fitness facility, but as a research facility for fitness and wellness. A concept that might be worth revisiting given the expansion of internet technology, which was a challenge for creating that type of facility.
Thank you. Thank you. So, unless there are further comments, what the plan is that we'll put this item on the agenda for the upcoming Committee of the Whole meeting with the idea that we will discuss the process of how to come to a conclusion on this. The idea today was to get all the information to us and to the public, and we will discuss at the upcoming Committee of the Whole meeting. We won't lose track of this. We'll keep it on the agenda, and we will discuss the process of how we're going to come to a conclusion on this very difficult question, if that's all right with everybody. Yes, Councillor Morrison?
I agree entirely. Could we be sent an electronic copy of the presentation, please?
Sorry, what did you say? Sure, sure. Councillor Connell, did you have a...
Well, and I don't mind receiving letters, but one of the things I do have a problem with is that when a letter is sent to me, if it's not signed, it shouldn't even go into that process. If the person that sent that letter doesn't want to sign the letter, it shouldn't be sent on. I'm not interested in reading somebody's thoughts that doesn't have the gut to put their name on it. Secondly, I received an email from a Mr. Oz, and when I went to return it, it kicked back that there was no such return email. So I have a problem with somebody throwing a name on a heading and saying Mr. Oz, and I don't care who he is. But if he hasn't got guts enough, I won't say the proper thing I'd probably say, but if he hasn't got guts enough to sign it, or give a return email address so you can send the remarks back to that person, no matter if they like my remarks or not. If they're willing to send them one way, they should be willing to take them the other way. So I wasn't very happy with some of the emails that were sent to me through our county computer. One was, there was some that wasn't signed, and there was Mr. Oz, you couldn't get back to him. And like I said, if he's got enough to rant and rave, he should be allowing us to return the message. I wasn't impressed with that.
Thank you. Mr. Catino, do you have any comments before we close the session? Thank you. Councillor Redden?
These, there's been a number of documents circulated to us. They are considered confidential, or are they open to the public, or can they?
What did you say, Louis? They're they're public.
That's
Sure. Anything that was distributed to us, you can use to inform your constituents.
great.
Anything else? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Sheridan moves. Councillor LeBlanc seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much.